And I said, man, everybody should be able to have this material.
Or is that something you help me with?
Yeah, that's something that we do. Yeah, so we're a turnkey service. We've got stuff, bids out in Saudi Arabia, I mean, all around the world. You know, they put an old jacuzzi pump on it and build a wood deck around it, and that pool sold for $3,300 in the early 50s.
What are common mistakes that people make with this product?
He actually built some of the first capsules for astronauts to test weightlessness for the first lunar mission.
Nick started in the pool industry at the age of 15. Yes, that's a 1-5. Good afternoon. This is Mike Farley with Poolside Perspectives Podcast, and we have a great episode for you that you'll clearly understand later on. How was your week, Trey?
My week was nice, lazy, relaxed, got that little mental stress away and just chilled out for a bit. How about you?
Oh, well, it was mostly, work stuff and getting ready for the international pool shows in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got to prepare my class, and being the person that I am.
So what date is that?
It's the International Pool, Spa, and Patio Show.
Yep.
And it is the second week of November.
Okay.
And it starts on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Your dates are the 12th, 13th, 14th. There's advanced classes before that start. So if you want to get into like a 2-day or a 3-day or a 1-day, 8-hour, 16, 24-hour class and get into some deep level stuff, that's going on as well. But it's an amazing time. I can safely say that the first one that I went to in 1998 changed who I am as a person in the pool industry. So highly, highly recommended. I'm teaching one on how to design in small spaces.
You're also having a really cool little show.
Oh, yeah. So if you listen to last week's episode, you heard about the $1 Million Pool Challenge. That will be taking place on the second day. So that's Wednesday. We'll be judging that. And so if you want to come and see all the cool projects or the top 5, and you get to come and vote and see who gets $10,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So someone really likes it all the time. So anyway, we've got a really cool episode today.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one.
So this is something that we have people ask about all the time, and most people don't know a lot of information. So we're going to have Nick Hauk on today of Elemental Acrylic. And let me just give you some information about Nick. So Nick started in the pool industry at the age of 15. Yes, that's a 1-5. And started in a 3rd-generation pool builder. Shortly after graduating from Oklahoma State University, he moved back to Salina, Texas, where he worked with his family's pool company, where he helped grow it from 40 to 250 pools a year. That experience spurred his desire to build a boutique agency focusing on quality, not quantity. In his free time, you'll find him in the outdoors with his best buddy and dog, Frank. Although I heard that you've just got engaged as well. So.
She's quickly replacing Frank for sure.
Okay, well,
she should be.
Okay.
I just got engaged. Thanks for having me, by the way.
So welcome. Glad to have you here today.
Yeah,
Congrats.
This is great. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's I've never been married, don't have any kids, so I've focused on my business and had a lot of fun, but you get to a certain point where you just need to find a good woman, and that's where I'm at.
Oh yeah, age is just a number.
I saw your dad just look at you when I said that.
Oh no,
he got engaged on September 3rd.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
It's
awesome.
that time of season. I guess.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you've been in the pool industry a long time.
Yes, sir.
And so there's been a journey on how you got to where you're at now. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Man, my earliest memory of aquatics or swimming pool business, my dad at that time had worked for Riverbend Sandler back in the 90s when Clinton was in office and everybody could get approved for financing, and it was like the heyday. And he sold over 100 pools a year for Riverbend. And as a kid, I used to run around the Riverbend showroom. My first tool in the pool business I knew how to operate was a paint pen. I'd have to draw flowers on my dad's plans because he drew them all by hand on a pencil and a board every night. So that was some of my earliest memories. Before that, my grandfather, my dad's dad, he originally got in the aquatics business, pool industry in the 1953. So he started a small pool company out of just south of St. Louis, Missouri called Circle Pools. And at that time, he was 24, I believe, when he started that company. And he was just an old farm boy. He used to take grain silos and cut them in half, and he'd bury them. And they put like an old back then it was just jacuzzi pumps, and they put an old jacuzzi pump on it and build a wood deck around it. And that pool sold for $3,300 in the early 50s. He went on to build some of those pools indoor in this warehouse. And he came to find out like 10 years later, he actually built some of the first capsules for astronauts to test weightlessness for the first lunar mission.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So our family was involved in that. And he didn't even know he was involved with it. He thought he was just putting tanks in a warehouse for the government, had no idea what they were for. That business actually is still open and running today. So I think it's exchanged owners twice since my grandfather had it. But yeah, so kind of a long lineage of it, and just kind of all I've ever known is pools.
So how did y'all get to Texas?
We got to Texas. So my grandfather, when he sold the pool business, he went to work for CBS Broadcasting and Columbia Records. And so he had worked a lot with Johnny Cash and some of his early days. And that was a good run, but I think he just wanted something more for his family. So Texas was the kind of the new thing. And so they actually got a motorcycle store franchise here in Dallas called Dallas Suzuki BMW. And it was off Harry Hines and Royal, honestly, about 5 or 10 minutes from here, where the studio is. And so we still own that building, but we ran the Dallas Suzuki store for, 20 years. And then about the time I was born is when my grandfather said no more of the bike stuff. He was just tired of selling bikes to guys, and it was just dangerous, So anyways, a couple of years later, my dad jumped back with Charles Barnes over at Riverbend and started building pools, and kind of the rest is history. So there's a brief pause where we did the motorcycle thing, but always have been in aquatics in one way or the other.
You own a pool company and you got into the acrylic business. So how did that transpire?
Back in 2017, I decided that I wanted to do something different. In my mind, I think there's several types of pool builders in this world, but I think you've got production guys and you've got high quality production and you've got boutique. And depending on the client, it really depends on which, builder is a good fit for you, I think, as a client. But I wanted to start a boutique firm, and mainly because I wanted to be able to challenge myself. I knew that if I stayed in the same production machine for the rest of my career, I wouldn't be able to do creative or new things and push my mind every day. So that's kind of how it started. The acrylic thing fell in my lap. The first pool that I sold after I made the jump from leaving my family's firm, which was the hardest decision in my life, hands down, but leaving there and then going off on your own. And then my first pool was an acrylic pool, which was definitely over my head, 100%. And I tend to find a lot of designers, it is also over their head just because it's not a material that you work with frequently.
No.
So it was kind of trial by fire on the first one. We had there was only at that time, I think, 1 or 2 installers in the United States, and they just kind of traveled everywhere, right? You were getting charged for like all these miscellaneous fees, laundry, rental car, all that stuff. And so the first time we did one, we hired that company, and I had a guy pull up to my job site in an old beat up truck with Texas plates. And I said, that's not a rental car. And so I started talking to him, and it turns out he's got, 30 plus years experience installing acrylic all around the world. And he's just getting older and wants to work, in the state of Texas. And so we kind of struck up an agreement where we would help each other. And it really snowballed, Mike. It was, I tell everybody when it first started, it was like I'd work on it 1 day a week. I'd open that email account and kind of do things. And now it's like I have to have somebody manning the email 24 hours a day, just to keep up with some of the leads. So it's been really a surprising industry, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I did a project about 15 years ago, and I had probably dealt with one of those couple of companies out there, and they wouldn't even answer the phone. You had to send them an email, and then they would get around to answering your question. And I had a client that was like, I definitely want this. Just give me a price and let's go. And I was like, well, she's like, how come you haven't got me a price yet? And I'm like, they haven't answered me yet. And she was like, well, what kind of business do they run? And I was like, well, they build aquariums. Pool guys are stepchildren. Yep. They're doing thousands and thousands of square feet, for some aquarium in Dubai or San Diego or somewhere else. And that, the little window that I need isn't really high on their radar. And so, it was really frustrating on that initial one, is because I couldn't get any information at all.
Yeah.
So was that kind of the experience that you
Same
had?
exact experience I had. I was definitely one of a million. Like you could tell they had a big book of clients just tapping their foot waiting for installs. So I wasn't a priority. It was exorbitantly expensive. I'll just be transparent. Like when I bought my first panel as a consumer, I was shocked.
Oh yeah.
So then that's what created my curiosity behind it. I'm a naturally curious person. I always just ask why and just, I don't know, whatever, just ask why. And I've always found in life, if you just ask why, you'll go further. And so went down the rabbit hole of the acrylic, man. And I just started I was on Alibaba.com. I was all over the place. So just like trying to learn about this stuff because nobody has information on it. And I went down the rabbit hole and made some really, really good contacts early. And I'm now with the largest supplier in the world. So they do big stuff like big zoos. I mean, I'm talking major stuff, China, Russia. They've got manufacturing in every country in the world. So it's really opened up my eyes to just how much, there is out there. But yeah, you're right. Pools were always just bottom of the barrel. You could tell that the pools were like the back of the line. They didn't care about those. Those just kept their guys working. They weren't profit centers. So I did a first few panels for some pool builder buddies here and there. My uncles bought one from me. I had a buddy down in Austin that bought one. So it's kind of just teaching myself. And I told him like, hey, I don't know everything, but I promise if it's not right, I'll make it right and learn together. So I kind of gave away the first few as cheap as I could, it's just to kind of get my name out there and learn. And I'll never forget it. I had a major competitor call me up and says, well, why are you letting these go so inexpensive? There's a line, there's a demand for this stuff. Why are you, basically rattling everybody's cage? And I said, man, everybody should be able to have this material. Like it's just like tile or stone or anything else. Just because you're one of two people in the country doing it doesn't mean you can take advantage of people. So we really try to provide really fast service and great collaboration with the builders, because I know from my pool background, when you're doing a second appointment in a client's house, sitting in their kitchen, and it's Friday evening or whatever, and you want to get that deal at the end of the month, as a designer and a salesperson, you're going to try to push, right? And if you don't have a contractor or somebody who's knowledgeable when you're trying to sell that product or available, like you said, Mike, you just got to be available and just take those calls. And we've really found success in that.
My journey started, so I got into the pool side from landscape architecture in 92. And so when I did that, my thought was I need education. So I'm going to go find pool books, because this was before the internet. So you couldn't look stuff up that easy. So I went out, and this was the only book that I could find. So this was the Sunset Swimming Pool book. And in the Sunset Swimming Pool book, there is a picture of a guy in a window.
Huh.
And this was in a wine room cellar. So this was the wine cellar that was built with a common wall with a swimming pool.
What year is that?
And this is in 92. So
that could be one of the earliest windows.
Yeah, it's the earliest one that I know about. Now, the funny thing was the guy, so I got this book and I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn stuff. Well, I went to work for this pool company in Northern California, Jeremia Pools. And Jeremia Pools, 25% of the pools in here are Jeremia Pools.
Oh.
And in fact, John Withers worked for Jeremia Pools. This is one of their pools that they actually built. So I was like, well, this isn't really going to help me a whole lot because I already got this information. But anyway, it was really bizarre to me because, this was something that, I saw right when I first started my career. So you'd think I'd done a ton of windows, right? No, it was just like, I didn't have a whole lot of wine cellars to put next to swimming pools.
You got to have the right client. Yeah. It's just like with anything else. I do sometimes see designers forcing that material into spaces, and I'll be the first one to tell them, like, just honest opinion, like big brother advice, like you don't ever want to force it. It's got to be the right house and the right architecture and things like that.
Well, it creates a certain look, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So how long has acrylic been around?
Rome was the first ones to synthesize that.
Okay.
So Rome synthesized acrylic in Germany in the 30s, right? Yeah. And at that time, building construction material technology isn't anything like it is today, right? So it was way ahead of its time.
Right.
So we didn't really know all the capabilities of it. I mean, at that time, we didn't even really have enough the engineering knowledge to know about deflection and things like that we now run into. So that patent was sold to two different manufacturers, and those manufacturers are still in business today. So, as far as quality, if you were looking for museum quality glass, anything that's an acrylite product is what you want to look for. Acrylite is basically the sub company that Rome made after the patent.
Okay. I saw their name when I was looking through some stuff.
Yes, sir.
I get one complaint about the big green egg.
Mhm.
It takes too long to get going.
Right.
Okay. I'm a patient individual. I usually tell people, listen, go light your green egg, go prep your food. By
Sure.
the time you prep your food,
Sure.
your egg a lot of times will be ready to use.
Right.
Now, the challenge is that is, it's just steak knife.
Right.
And I need it at 700 degrees. Well, that takes a little bit while to get going.
Right.
So there's a solution, correct?
There is a solution.
Okay. Please explain.
And this makes it ease of use. So this is an electric lighting solution. It's made by Looft lighter. What it is, you can imagine being just a hot hair dryer. And how this works, it's got a 12-foot cord. Doesn't pull a lot of amperages. You don't throw breakers. You can see the element screen nose on the end. It gets extremely hot. So when I fill my charcoal up into this grill, at first what I'll do is I'll put the nose of this onto the charcoal and then hit the start button. Within about 12 to 15 seconds, once you see it spark, then you back it off a couple of inches. Keep it held down, and what will happen within 90 seconds, you'll get this grill up to 550, 600 degrees.
90 seconds.
90 seconds, yeah. Just hold it on there. Now, some people will do 2 areas, but I will go in the center point of any grill, and when it starts to illuminate and get really red in your charcoal, then I'll be done. I'll take it away, and then however I'm going to cook. More than likely, if I want it quick, I'm going to go direct grilling. So I'll put the cooking grid back on.
Right.
Then I'll shut my egg in. Never leave your egg open. Always shut it down and let the heat absorb into the ceramic itself and open up your air channels. Then it gives you a nice control point, but it lights very, very quick. As of breakaway starters, sometimes you light them, sometimes they don't. They smoke. You have to fight through all that. With this, it's really clean, ease of use, quick lighting solution. It should be in everyone's arsenal if they have a ceramic grill.
So I'm doing ribs. The big challenge with that is for me to get clear smoke.
That's correct.
Okay. So I want my
correct.
clear smoke versus my billowing
That's correct.
gray stuff. So will it help me get that quicker as well?
It'll help you get there quicker. And also, you don't have to fight through all that. Once you light your charcoal, then I can set my chunks in there. And like you said, go in and prep my ribs, then get to my blue smoke instead of getting out of my white to my blue smoke mode, where it's the
Okay.
most penetrating smoke.
But you probably wouldn't run it for 90 seconds.
You would. Now you would. And then use this as a control point. All you'll have to do, I've got it wide open on direct grilling. All you have to do is leave a third of the space open and it'll deprive it of air. Meet that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, great Christmas present. coming
Great
up.
Christmas present. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to walk through the process of how do you get the acrylic, how do you install it, how does that whole process work? Because there might be someone that's interested and has no idea what this process even is.
Well, as far as getting it, a lot of that depends on the application, right? Thickness, shape, things like that. We can talk about it later, but I've got these new bar stools I've been working on.
Oh, cool.
And like they have solid rods, right? Well, all the rods are manufactured in Asia. So we buy the rods, then we got to chemically bond it. Then it goes into an oven. So this is how you get neat shapes and things like that.
Yeah.
Curved spas, things like that. And this oven is the size of it's huge. It's gotta be, I don't know. I've got a picture of it I can show you later. It's massive, right? And it's just kind of a custom made oven that they made in Germany, and they designed it over there, and now it's in Houston. So this oven that we have in Houston, we put our big panels in there and we form them. So we get giant forms that are the size of this room. And we actually bend that material and it sits in that oven for however long the engineer wants it to sit in there, right? So
How do you bend it?
heat.
Oh, okay. That makes
Yeah,
sense,
so the back of the oven's fully enclosed, and it looks, I don't know how to describe it. It looks like a giant oven box, big doors that open, and then it's got a bunch of fans in the back, and that's how they put it in there and let it bake. So really when you get into these big, massive panels, right, the curved stuff, what you're paying for is time in the oven. So that kind of technology and support is, I think, very important in a supplier. And, for all intents and purposes, we're just the installers, right? The supplier is really the secret sauce to the success of a good material.
So when you have an acrylic window, you've got a straight window. Okay. So you just said you could do a curved window as well. You can make a piece of acrylic that's a full circle. So you can use it like in a spa. So you can have a 90-degree corner. Those are the things that are important to understand when you're first coming up with, okay, my concept. So I need to understand how I'm going to do this and where I'm going to put it. Right. You've got places where the water runs over the acrylic, and you've got places that the water stays level on the acrylic. Is that a big deal?
It is. Yeah. So a lot of the water level is something we have to know going into it, right? Because we just did an install for you guys last week.
Right.
And, you saw that a lot of the prep work, by the time the big show starts, when we're craning things over houses, all that prep work's done. So there's a 4 or 5 day process before things get there.
Okay. So I guess what you're asking is, I want acrylic in my pool.
Yeah.
How do I go about? So the first thing is, are there limitations to what I can do with this product? Okay. Along with, okay, if I start changing things from a straight run, is that 2x the cost, 10x the cost, 50x the cost? I'm a designer. I'm looking at, I want to put this size piece in. Is there a way to get a rough idea of cost in the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, we're a Texas company. We're manufactured in Texas. So at least in town, I can throw off some numbers, but out of town, there's a little more calculation. But I mean, generally speaking, you can do a small spa spillway window for between 13 and 15K. That's kind of your entry level. And really, of that money, I'd say 4K is almost just in waterproofing materials and shipping and labor and, all that. And then the rest of it's panel. So that's kind of an entry level panel that's still going to give you a very showy look, still going to give you a big wow factor, but not really going to take budget away from other important items like landscape and drainage and irrigation, things like that. And then, of course, the sky is the limit. I mean, you talk about big, yeah, there's a lot you can do with it.
So with the limit, I'm just wondering, for a homeowner that wants something like this, what are the limitations? I know you said the sky, but like for like a big wall, like a big dam wall, is there a certain degree of curve you can put to it before it's like kind of not, I guess safe or something like that, or I don't know.
So
is there limitations?
Not really. I mean,
okay.
Our motto is we build the impossible.
Okay.
So I mean, if there's, not to be too frank, but I guess the only limit is probably going to be budget, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Anything's possible, but to talk about the curvature and things like that, I mean, we can do so much with it, even more than I ever knew. And I didn't know it until I went down and I kind of visited and really got in this world and seeing these suppliers and talking about angles and bends. I mean, there's columns you can do and all kinds of outside the box thinking.
So all this out of the box thinking requires an engineer. Okay, do I take that to my standard structural engineer and he figures this out, or is there a special engineer that you work with? I mean, how does this work?
So the line in the sand for me is your structural engineer needs to lay within your pool contractor, right? So if he's speccing the piers, we want him speccing the structure, right? Where we live is we engineer it for deflection. So what these panels do is from hot to cold, depending on climate. Let's take Houston for an example. If I set a window in Houston, that thing can expand 1/8 an inch from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. in that afternoon. So if the pool vessel itself, the concrete, is not accounted for or built to allow that window to flex and move, that's where you get major failure. So the engineering, to a certain extent, needs to fall on both parties. Both need to do their diligence, make sure they got good steel in there, good concrete around the steel. And then on the acrylic installer side, they need to make sure it's engineered for deflection from a qualified engineer, not just any engineer. There's only a few in the world that really understand this material.
So is that something I've got to find, or is that something you help me with?
Yeah, that's something that we do. Yeah, so we're a turnkey service. Yeah, we're turnkey labor, material, engineering, full collaboration, and we work with clients on projects such as, we call them living life tanks, or fish tanks is a fancy word for fish tanks, things like that, life tanks. And then we also do, of course, the big aquatics and pools like that. So
with the window, when it expands and contracts like you're talking about, So I'm just assuming that you have a bunch of like caulking on the side, like a really thick amount of it to hold that in place.
Mhm.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a grout below the window.
Okay.
So that does a lot of the rigidity, right? Kind of holds it, and then there's a silicone that goes above that. But at the end of the day, I think from a client's perspective, I think if I was buying one and I wasn't in the industry, request to see shop drawings, right? Any qualified acrylic supplier does not want to put that panel out there without actually doing proper engineering. Now, your builder may be sourcing from overseas, or I don't know if you can buy it on Amazon now, right? And it's kind of everywhere. But really, where the magic is who's looking at how much that panel is going to expand and contract, and do you have that on paper? And does your installer have a proper plan on how to set that window with the proper materials, like you mentioned, the silicone, the precision grout, things like that.
Yeah. So the term thermal expansion is used when your product expands and contracts in the heat and cold. So is there a certain temperature that it's too cold to use acrylic? Or is it the range of temperature from hot to cold that's the big issue?
It's the range. So acrylic loves perfect temp, right? It's like that 70s. That's where it loves to live. You know,
it wants to be in San Diego and
Yeah.
Hawaii too.
California,
yeah, absolutely, right? But yeah, you get a window in Houston, they get kind of pissed off. These windows don't like being in Houston. It's hot, and it changes on. Same with North Texas. And then we get up in the Northeast. I was doing one in Maryland when you and I were texting. That one's totally different. So when we get a client, and we've got bids out in Saudi Arabia, all around the world. But when we get a client, the number one thing my engineer asks me for is shipping address, zip code. What we do is we go in and we look at the average of that weather over the course of a year, right? And all that is math that goes into the equation of that.
So what's the biggest temperature swing that you've worked with?
We have a client that has a pool that's half indoor, half outdoor. And below the pool, there's the kids' playroom. So as you look up into the ceiling, there's the tanning ledge, right? So it's only 8 or 10 inches of water, but it's really a beautiful effect. You're in the playroom and you look up and it's just people swimming. It's incredible. But we've realized that if you don't keep that pool temp regulated, and then the room underneath it's at a different temp, it really puts that acrylic in a bind and really makes it mad,
Makes
right?
sense,
Yeah, that thermal expansion is getting two different signals from a top plane and a bottom plane, and it just does not like it, right? So that was one that we didn't install, but I've been involved with it, and I'm gonna go back and visit it again, and hopefully get it corrected for the final time. But there's a lot of learning, Again, it's when you build the impossible or do things like that. There's not a manual for a lot of this stuff.
So it's not necessarily that you have to like heat the pool in the wintertime to keep the acrylic at a comfortable margin. That doesn't have to happen.
Well, this particular product or this particular pool, because the panels are half in, half out, that pool stays heated year round.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
that is a solution. Sometimes it's required. So that's something that when you start the project, that all I've dealt with is windows. I've never dealt with this floor situation, which I've seen more and
So
more
cool.
pictures of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really cool architecture.
Oh yeah.
But the that's something that would come into play in the discussions of, okay, this is what's going to be required for this to perform well. So everybody's on the same page at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, it just goes back to just asking questions, right? If you're asking for this product, let's just say you're in Wichita, Kansas, right? And you want acrylic. Everybody in the pool industry, I feel like a lot of guys are yes guys. And it's just, you say yes because you want to build that product or you want to do that innovative thing. But I think as a client, I highly advise everybody, just ask, like, hey, have you done this before? And it's okay if you haven't, but have you done it before? And get an honest answer out of them. If they say yes, it's either you got a choice to trust them or say, hey, well, show me a picture of what you did last time, and just ask questions. Let me see the shop drawings. Where are you getting it from? Have you ever done one? These are just basic questions that I think that if you just ask them, you'll get a better product.
I'm wondering with the floor situation in that one house. I'm thinking about a spa now. So will you have the similar issues with that, like in the middle of the winter because the pool's cold, and then say the spa is in the middle of the pool or something like that? You have a bridge walk out to it. Is that kind of similar or?
Similar, but it's in the same vessel where so it's not as hard on it. It still
Okay.
does, but we know that going into it, right?
Yeah.
When we have these floor panels and you have an climate controlled house, we don't really know where they like the climate in that room at all times,
Yeah.
and that water
Yeah.
temp's got to mirror what you have on the bottom.
So if I was there, it'd be one temperature. If Trey's there, it'd be several degrees colder.
66 degrees
Mhm.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was in fact Kid Rock's pool. I have a good buddy, Chad Christensen, great guy. If anybody out there knows Chad, he's a great guy. He's out in Nashville.
Yeah.
But Chad has been involved with Kid Rocks, and yeah, kind of same thing on that one. It was an older pool done before I was in the acrylic business, but he had the same thing, had an indoor outdoor type situation, floor panel, and had to be climate controlled. So kind of interesting.
Oh yeah. Real quick, we're gonna do a design concept, and I'm wondering, is there any job that comes to mind with fire?
With fire.
Yeah, just fire in particular.
All my jobs have fire on them.
Well, I know, but something maybe we haven't talked about before.
So I do have a project that, we were talking about fire features last time, and the concept of a fireplace and a fire pit and fire features, and were they all in one job? So to me, if you're going to have all those in one job, you definitely have to have a structure to put the fireplace in. So this job doesn't have a structure.
It's got to have a lot of gas lines and regulators as well.
Yes, it does. So this particular job, again, sight lines are real important on the projects that I work on. And the sight lines of this particular project were very narrow as they went out into this yard. This yard's an acre.
Okay.
But the sight lines are real narrow. And so what they wanted was something that would give them some very dramatic visual effects. We also were dealing with a hillside.
Okay.
Hillside's going up. In fact, the challenge was where we were going to put the pool, because of some trees and the location of those trees, the pool area was going to be the lowest spot in the yard, which is a horrible situation when you have heavy rainfall, because all the water wants to go in there. And
Yep.
if the pool's there, then it wants to go in the house.
Ooh, and drainage becomes tricky too.
So we actually built some special drains and built a bridge so water could run through a drain system. But if the system backed up, it still had a fail safe that it could run under this bridge and go out and wrap around the side to a dry stream bed. So in both such situations. But the issue was they had a home that was on the modern lines, but it was a Spanish flare. And so it had a clay tile roof, and the stone on the outside, there was a random stone. So it was very irregular. We wanted something that had some clean lines to it, but we had to play off the stonework that was there. So we incorporated all that. But we ended up with a big line burner to gather around, because they wanted some places to hang out. And that was centered up on the master bedroom. So as you looked out from the master bedroom, you could see that space. And then the other line of sight, we came in with the spa that was elevated, and we had to have a wall behind the spa, which added some more water features coming into the spa, and then complementing ones falling from the spa down into the pool. And then we had to incorporate around a tree and tie into a big high retaining wall. So in these key places, we had, as we turned around the corners of this project, there were 3 fire bowls. And so we had fire and we had water, and it was a very spectacular situation. But again, it was in a very narrow line of sight that you looked through all these windows and doors, and it was only about 15 feet wide that you looked down through the yard. So of course we ran the pool lengthwise through this space, because again, it was a courtyard situation, and got it out as far as we could to draw the eye. And then the spa was up the hillside, and then some retaining walls behind that. And that allowed us to be able to walk up this hillside and then walk out onto the grade at the upper level around the tree, because we couldn't change the grades because of all the trees. So it was a very neat job. It was a little bit different than your normal style that you see right now, because it brought in what I call a little bit of a organic modern, because it was a little more rustic in appearance because of the materials and some of the lines we used. We didn't do a perfect rectangle. We brought some curves in as well, but architectural curves. So it was a fun project. So we'll post some pictures of it. So
Awesome. Well, let's get back to the podcast.
So one of the things that everybody likes to do today is a perimeter overflow. And I was thinking about this. So if you did an acrylic window that's a vanishing edge with a perimeter overflow with your expansion and contraction, that could be difficult to pull off, if not just downright impossible to pull off.
I got a great video I'll share with you that we've done it several times, but each time you always look at it. You're as a pool builder, you're like, maybe I would have tried it different that last time. This is my third swing at it, and I think I've perfected it, but I'll send you the detail on it.
If it was a Lautner edge, I could see the water move up and down slightly and you wouldn't notice it. But if it's a wet coping, I mean, that would be really hard to do, I would think.
Yes. So I'll send you this video, but what we're going to do in the next one, it's here in Dallas coming up, but we're going to set the silicone lower. So we're not going to take the silicone all the way up as high as we normally do. That way that water has a way to get around that window, because really technically if it's at 0, right, you're going to get water on the deck. So that water needs to go somewhere. So I'll send you the detail, but it's really neat. So we're just going to kind of leave a channel around the outside. And so that way when wet side fills up, goes to the basin, goes around the window, and just drops down.
So what are common mistakes that people make with this product? I mean, we've talked about not understanding thermal expansion. So that's probably one of the biggest ones going in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there's all kinds of things that I don't even know where to start.
Plexiglass is the common thing. You know, like people are just like,
Instead of acrylic?
yeah, like it's very acrylic. When I first got into it, like I thought it was real glass, like window glass.
Yeah,
Like, I didn't know any better. You know,
Right. So explain the difference between the two.
Yeah, so acrylic's actually a polymer, right? And it's like a resin. So there's several different forms of it, but it starts as a pellet typically, and then it's melted into a liquid, and that liquid's dropped into forms. So so it kind of has some different forms. But when you get into glass, obviously we know what window glass looks like. Tempered glass, we do a lot of tempered glass railing and things like that at Elemental, and that's glass that's designed to take impact but not actually break and create shards, which typically in most cases with pool code is very important. You know, glazing of the window. So there's 3 of them, but people tend to butcher them and mix them up. And then I've seen even pool builders like install like actual tempered glass where acrylic should be, right? And it can be done, I will say that, but you can't get much height out of it. You're talking 12 to 18 inches, maybe. I mean, it's just too much stress and not enough real estate as far as the thickness.
Right. Okay. So, what are some other mistakes that they think it's going to look like something and that's not what it actually looks like?
Yeah, so I hear a lot of people I get this a lot. What about the lights? Everybody, ask about the lights, right? Because you think you see through it and you got to really think about your light source. But acrylic actually absorbs light. It's again, a fascinating material. So you can put one standard 500 watt can light in a pool, or 1 or 2 LEDs, or do your normal spacing. And as long as that source of light is hidden, which in my mind as a designer, I don't want to see the source of light if possible, right? So if that light's hidden, that acrylic will actually grab that light and it glows. So that's how you get the effect of the ice cube, right? It looks like a big cube or a big sheet of ice. So, and again, it absorbs the color. So that's something that a lot of people, I think, they tend to add too much lights, and then you end up seeing light sources everywhere, and it tends to butcher the panel a little bit, in my opinion. Other common mistake that we see, usually we call it aftercare, but when you get your panel done, kind of like that debrief email I sent you guys after we finished setting one for you, no Windex, Goo Gone. Everybody, I always think about groundskeepers or maintenance people out there, and they just don't know any better, right? They see a smudge or a fingerprint, they just go Windex. That's actually really bad for the material. It does not like that. It develops this thing called crazing. It's almost like a spider web pattern right over the top of the polymer. So just good old soap and water and a microfiber towel and comfortable temperatures. That's what they like. So
is it good to, for normal pool cleaners, just to brush the inside of it?
Won't hurt anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to use the wire brush, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, use the nylon. The nylon bristles should be good. But yeah, that, and then also too, I tell everybody, I mean, when you're if you that pool has to be drained for any reason, right? Whether it's acid wash or somebody drops a beer bottle in the bottom of the pool and it has to be drained and vacuumed and whatnot, go ahead and call us. Like, have us polish it. You know, it's not often we get to polish the wet side. I can polish the dry side all day, but you know, have me out to polish it. What I found on the acrylic world, which is unfortunate, is a lot of the people in this world that install, they tend to sit around and want these pools to fail to a certain extent because that's business for them, right?
Yeah.
And they're coming back in and fixing it and things like that. Where at Elemental, our goal is to educate these pool builders, right, and teach them and empower them to know better.
So how long is the lifespan of these windows typically?
I mean, depends on the maintenance and the quality,
Okay.
right? If it's high quality museum glass and if it's on an annual inspection with us, we're going to come by either annually or biannually when we're in town doing other jobs. We'll just send my guys there and there's downtime. We'll polish it, inspect the seal, but it'll last forever if you take care of it, just like anything else, right?
Yeah.
But it's the clients that let them go or the houses that sit on the market forever and nobody's living in them. Those are the ones that really, you know, tend to fail on you quick.
When you're looking into a pool through acrylic, does it have a tendency to magnify things that are in the pool?
It distorts them. You know,
Okay.
yeah, it kind of bends. So it bends light, which is pretty fascinating. I think I've exchanged some texts with you, Mike, over the last year or so, but we've been working on some different products for residential pools in the acrylic world. And light has been a huge focus of ours the last 6 months. There's the material tends to do crazy things with light, right? It'll bend. It doesn't look like it's from this planet, the certain types of light.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
So as I'm designing, do I need to think about where I put drains in the bottom of the pool and stuff like that, and finishes around this edge that are coming in? Are there suggestions that I should look at and think about?
Yeah, you don't want to plaster up to the window, right? I think any qualified pool designer, if they've never done it, just call me. Like, it doesn't cost you to have a conversation. We'll walk through it. But yeah, you want to run tile around it. I got, we get called in a lot where they don't run tile around the window, and then you are forced to replaster the pool if you ever have to do a repair or anything on the wet side. So I like to tile on the inside of the rebate. That way it's a nice clean edge between the plaster and where our primary seal is. And it's easy to maintain that way.
Okay.
So when you do an acrylic wall for a whole side of the pool, like you said, with like fittings and drains and like stuff like that, you're pretty much not gonna have returns on that wall because it's obviously clear, right? So with hydraulics, does that get a little tricky or?
Real tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get into spas, like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
With the jets?
The jets. Yeah. You got to think about that. It's when you do an all 4-sided acrylic. So what we're talking about is a 4-sided acrylic spa where you do it all the way around and there's not really anywhere to hide the plumbing at that point, at least for the back. So there really needs to be a conversation. And if you're a consumer, I think a conversation with your significant other, your family. And then if you're a builder, I think there needs to be a conversation with your PM, and it needs to be thought out because, if we don't have any real estate to put PVC, where does it go? I typically see a bigger increase in people kind of up in the calf jets or up in the floor jets and things like that. But you're right. Yeah, you got to think that out. And that's what we do. I mean, look, you call us, and if I see you're doing something and you tell me it's your first time, I'm going to help hold your hand as much as I can because I don't want it to fail. I want you to be successful.
So that spa creates a very aesthetic look.
Yeah, we saw one in California.
I don't
Really
think
cool.
it's a very functional spa.
It's terribly not functional, but it's
Okay.
cool.
Not for
But
the
no, 100%. It's cool. It's awesome looking. But, I think that's just the conversation you need to have with the client. If you're all about your spa jets, then this is probably not the solution for you.
Yeah.
If you're into, I want something that looks amazing and awesome. Okay, well, now we're talking the right, direction. So
Yeah, I mean, there's just different applications, right? It's like you can have it on your spa, or like, hey, if I want that look, but I want the therapy, you can move it to the back of the pool or the floor. And yeah, there's a lot. I was going to ask you, Mike, how did the conversation come on your Quail Hollow job? How did that conversation with the client start?
So
With the acrylic, we just did an install for Mike.
So what happened there was they wanted a sunken fire pit. So that's become a very popular feature that people like. They see pictures of this. They really like the idea that it's cozy and you're you're next to the pool and everything like that. And so what happened was this particular project, they wanted to center up this sunken fire pit in between the pool and the family room. So basically you were looking out the family room windows, which went all the way to the floor, and they wanted to look down and see the fire there. And then you were going to look at a wall. And so my initial question to them was, are you open to a window? I said, because that would so much change the whole feel of it. Fire's cool. Okay, I love fire. I mean,
You're the king of fire. You do a lot of fire.
I do a lot of fire. Yes. The common joke I found with my superintendents is they want to know when they get the plans, what kind of crazy hillside am I dealing with, and what kind of fire feature did I come up with on this one? So, I'm like, that's amazing, but this is your primary line of sight. This is a very, very, very nice home. And so you want some wow out there. And so they were like, yeah, we're open to that. So that's when we actually, came up with the design that we did. And there was very few things that happened on that design that was modified, but that was one of the things that did not get modified at all.
Yeah.
It sets up for that situation. I mean, we've got another one right now that we're going to be starting here shortly. And the big situation was with it, the pool was 48 inches above it's up on a hillside. And so as you looked up on the hillside, if you're sitting down, you can't see the water level. If it's up above 42 inches, I mean, I'm sitting there looking
Way up.
uphill. And so you're not going to see anything. And so I said to them, do you want to see into the pool? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, you understand you can't right now unless we put a window there. And they were like, oh, well, that would be cool.
It's that easy.
And that's the situation that I see that it works really well is when you're looking into the vessel with your primary lines of sight. And that's what that design is as well. So it's going to be really a cool situation with it in that space. But that's how those two came about.
Yeah.
So the first one that I did, they were like, again, it was something right off of the primary sight line, and it was into the deep end of the pool. And they're like, wouldn't it be fun for us to watch the kids dive off the diving board and swim underwater and do all that kind of stuff? And we were like, well, we can do windows. And they were like, okay, so let's explore it. And so
God, the kids love it. They
Yeah.
really do. That's always like my favorite photo to get. It's always like, two little kids down there with their goggles on, looking through. Like, it's just cool.
Well, it was funny because it was on HGTV, and the photographer, I mean, this was 5 years ago. And so at that point in time, there weren't as many windows out there, and he was having a blast swimming around and making faces at the film crew and the whole 9 yards. So
It was 15. Not 5.
no, I built it 15 years ago.
Oh, they went back. Okay. Okay.
It was filmed.
Yeah. That's
Actually,
cool.
it's been longer than 5 years. It was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. But anyway, but that's when they filmed it.
Now, I've got to ask, because I think this is always the curse of being a pool guy. Do you own a pool?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about it.
So, well,
I'm sorry if you've talked about it already here, but I've always been curious, like, because I haven't built my own yet, and I'm about to go down the rabbit hole and do my own pool.
so I can tell you this, that was the hardest pool in the world to design, because you can sit there. I mean, I've designed hundreds and hundreds of swimming pools. And so you want it to be something cool, but then again, you're paying for it. So you don't want it to be too crazy. But then it's got to be functional, and it's got to be all these different things. And so when I was doing mine, the excuse I used was that I designed the pool for my family, and I just took me out of the equation. Now that's got to be a little bit of a lie, because there's no way in the world my wife would have come up with this pool design. And so there was parts of me that are in it, most definitely. But it's funny because It's very setting driven. We have 85 oak trees on a half acre. Okay. So we're in the thicket,
Mhm.
you know, and so I didn't want to take many trees out. And so the pool was designed with that particularly in mind. And the other thing is I designed it 22 years ago. So it was a long time ago.
Mhm.
It is not, I had someone the other day that said, you must have the most beautiful modern pool. And I said, no, I don't. And
I've heard
they're-
that so many times too. It's
and-
not just one
Dude,
customer.
like growing
Yeah.
up as a kid though, like in the industry and in Dallas, like you're always like the king of the waterfall. Like you did more slides. Like, I mean, you've always have. That's been such a, I think, a unique part of your design style in a lot of ways. Not many people can do waterfall cool, and you can do it cool.
What was funny is when we did the design, that was the one question my kids were. I said, they were like, where's the slide? And
Yep.
my comment was, the slide will come with the grandchildren. And I don't remember who said it, but it was one of y'all. It may have been you. We were at an event not too long ago, and the grandkids are all running around. And somebody was like, "Where's our?" It was Chelsea.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I didn't say
There's
that.
our
Chelsea.
slide.
Chelsea's like, "Where's our slide, Dad?"
Oh, man.
They don't forget, do they, when they're that age?
There's supposed to be a treehouse too.
Well, the treehouse got.
He's not retired yet. You know, give him a little more time. He'll do it.
So the treehouse got wiped out because, of course,
The excavators, yeah.
and this, I was like, thank goodness this happened on my job. They were setting rock work at my house, and there were big pieces of rock. And the guy was driving the Bobcat around. He didn't know how to drive a Bobcat. He ran into he destroyed 4 or 5 trees.
Tree protection it goes unnoticed. Like going back to common mistakes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw that in there. Like I think I'm a tree hugger. Maybe it's because I'm an outdoorsman and I love archery and things like that. But we need to do a better job as builders and designers protecting them trees. I mean, I see the abuse on every job I go to, and it's hard to keep that in mind. But we got to remember these things die 2 years later after we're out of there. They've got to protect the trees.
And so I had set all the whole
Yeah.
design, but the tree fort was supposed to be set in these 3 trees, and the guy destroyed them. So we'll have to construct something.
You have 77 more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, and now there's a lot longer slides, but I have a love for Colorado and backpacking, so I'm very much into organic settings, and so
You ever been elk hunting?
Huh?
You ever been elk hunting?
I've been where the elk are, and I've hunted them with a camera.
Yeah, they're pretty
yes.
incredible animals.
Oh, so they're amazing. Mountain ghosts.
That's a good way to describe them.
That well, and usually I'm in Colorado with a whole bunch of kids, and so rarely do I see a herd of elk unless they're one valley over running over the ridge away from this herd that I have. But we've been a couple of times that we literally almost walked into the middle of them.
It's amazing how large an animal that is can move silently through the forest.
Yeah.
It really is. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off topic.
No.
Get the outdoors going.
No. So it is a very, very hard design to do. I've heard that from designers, it's either the easiest or it's the hardest. And then my wife's like, so will we remodel the pool sometime soon? And I'm like, no, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize it. Sometimes remodels, it's just a math equation. It's like you get in some of these remodels, they can get over the price of a new one sometimes and get into them.
Oh, I've definitely had remodels that cost more than new pools.
Mm-hmm.
So with the acrylic, you were asking about how long it lasts. Is it a warranted product?
It is. I think, I don't know, I've always been the perspective. I think a warranty is only as good as the guy standing behind it, right?
Oh, 100%. on that.
So yeah, I mean, our manufacturer gives us, like a 5-year, but I mean, that's why I'm a big proponent of these inspections. As long as we're looking at it biannually or annually, that should last forever. But again, the industry, the acrylic world, they want to see these things deteriorate, right? They want to see the seal fail because it's just more work for them, right? So we're trying to change the narrative there a little bit and get in front of these things and really educate the homeowners and the builders on how to take care of them. But in theory, if they're taken care of, they should last forever.
So is UV rays, does that damage the acrylic windows much at all, or is that kind of not really
So
significant?
quality museum acrylic should never show
Okay.
any type of yellowing or anything like
So
that.
when people talk about their acrylic yellowing,
Yeah.
they haven't got a high quality.
Typically, it's material sourced from a C-level manufacturer overseas. You can typically tell when it's a big panel, and you look, and chemical or bonding is where the two panels or two materials, like a weld, right,
Yeah.
where they come together. So you can always look at a panel, and if there's a bond on it instead of 45-degree angle, that's typically low quality material, right? Or somebody just didn't really have really high quality bonding agents. There's probably 5 or 6 different bonding syrups and bonding agents that we use for these chemical bonds, but there's definitely an art and a science behind the chemical bond. And I think if it's something that is kind of a C-level overseas manufacturer, you're just not going to get the UV inhibitors that you get with museum quality glass. You're not going to get the good chemical bonds and things like that.
So are you only using those chemical bonds when you're like turning the corner, so changing direction, or do you like maybe stack a couple pieces together and bond them together?
So multiple applications. It's a great question. Turning corners, there's 3 or 4 ways to do that. But really, when we get into chemical bonds, it's when we start building things, right? When we're trying to bond those two things together. So it's just like I got a big one in Dallas right now. It's in right off Katy Trail, but it's on the second story of a house, and the pool's 50 or 60 foot long diving pool in the second story of the house. And then the shallow end, they've got a big L-shaped panel, right? So you got, when you do an L, right, you can do a lazy L. It's kind of a sweep, or you can do a hard 90, which is a whole different look, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine which one's more expensive than the other, the hard 90.
Of course.
And when you're holding up 5 foot, plus back into a basement. But we're working with a great McLean design, fantastic, and they're out of LA, and they are pretty adamant on the 90. So that's the direction we're going. And so that was going to require a very heavy special bonding syrup just due to the amount of stuff that we're holding up.
Cool. So because I would imagine those bonds you could like tell you see them. So if you're going a real long distance, just order the custom real big shape, just one sheet instead of stacking like 3 together to get the same size, right?
I think I'm understanding your question.
So if you instead of having have the same size window, and instead of having multiple bonds with smaller sheets, just have one big sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's where the innovative side of things come. That big oven I was describing. Right?
Yeah.
That's where we can get these massive panels, right? That break. Usually, when you break 30 foot is when we're talking serious innovation, right? We do it all day long, but from a residential pool perspective, that's a really big window, right? 30 feet long. I don't care how tall it is, but when you get to that length, it becomes shipping logistics of getting that thing there, and craning logistics. There's just a lot that you kind of compound. It doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it adds a lot.
That's another thing. When do you get a crane involved?
I like to have them. If I could have one on every job, I would. I just think they go seamless, when you have them. But there's certain situations you just can't get them in. Like we get into urban areas, like we've got one coming up in Florida, right in the middle of Miami. It's in the middle of it. You got to shut down streets, and you just can't get cranes in those areas, right? So you got to get a little creative. Really tight backyards. We get into some of these stuff that's in Austin proper, down in Austin, and there's beautiful old houses down there. They're from the 40s and 50s, but the side yards are about 6 feet wide, right? And they are on a hill. So those we got to get creative and wheel in with mechanical dollies and things like that. So every install, you kind of have to think like an Egyptian, right? It's like you're trying to move this massive piece of something, and if we can get a crane, that's great, but that's not always the case.
So do you need site information, photographs to give the proper scope of work?
Yeah, so that usually is with that initial phone call. So if a designer, builder, homeowner calls me, we kind of talk high level, just like you would with the pool appointment. And that's when I'll kind of, as I'm talking, I'll look at it on Google Earth, and I'm within about 30 seconds, I can at least get us in the ballpark of what we're going to need as far as equipment and manpower.
We have a section in the podcast called True Crime, Poolside True Crime. So, in your experience, have you seen something that would be considered a crime?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
there's a lot of ways to commit a crime, but I would say the most common one that I see, I think, in the pool industry, don't have too much pride. Like, you don't know everything. Like, nobody does. Like, I mean, Mike, you've been doing this longer than anybody, and I think you'll tell me, like, every day in the pool, it's what I love about it. It's always different every day. You're learning constantly throughout your career. And I see a lot of people come in this industry from other places, landscapers or firefighters or whatever. They want to build pools, which is fine. I encourage entrepreneurship 100%, but ask questions. Like, don't be the first one to admit that you don't know it all. So again, it goes back to when you're doing things as a client and you're asking for innovative things or things that haven't been done on your market before. Push that builder, ask where they're getting their information from, what's their track record on it. I think it's a big cardinal sin. I'd say that. And then I think going to formal education, we briefly touched on in the beginning, but I'm a big fan of water shapes and Genesis. I started off doing Genesis classes when I was 19 or 20. And it really changed my career. It really did. It got me excited about the aquatics industry. You meet people your age and the same boat as you, and you meet people that are older or younger than you that are just now kind of where you were a few years ago. So there's a lot of collaboration. And I think, as builders, we've got to collaborate more with each other.
Oh yeah. It's something that's really, really helpful. I mean, we're involved with Tributary as well. And, all three of those organizations, the cool part about it is everybody loves to share.
Yeah.
And help each other out. So, I mean, anytime I'm doing something for the first time, I'm going to pick up the phone. And the advantage of been doing this for so long is I know somebody that's done it. And if I don't know somebody that's done it, then I know somebody who will know. So it's just a few phone calls and I can find out the information that I need. So yeah, especially with this product, I think it's such a cool product and it can go in so many different situations and there's so many advantages of it from a wow and awesome standpoint, but don't wing it.
No, don't wing it. That goes back to just ask. I mean, when something's new, don't be afraid of it, but just somebody within that network of Tributary, Water Shapes, Genesis, they're going to be able to help you.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So are you going to be at the show?
Yes, sir. I'll be at the show. I'm going to be taking some water shapes classes. Got some friends coming into town. Really excited about it. It's nice that it's close to home for once. Yeah.
So you won't have a booth there?
No, I've never really been a big booth guy. I think I'm a handshake guy. I like meeting people and getting in front of them. Maybe one. I think I've got to do a booth in Palm Springs for UAG later this year. I think I've got to do that one. But yeah, I mean, if I can, I'd rather just take somebody to dinner and get to know them. I think that's such a better way to interpersonally get to know who your client is. And but yeah, I mean, the booths are great, but look, I mean, they're all there to sell you something. I'd rather teach you something than sell you something.
So what's a good way to contact you?
Our website, Elemental Acrylic, all my contact information is on there. Our email is just hello@Elemental Acrylic. So yeah, reach out if you've got any questions and we'd be happy to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being
thank you guys.
on.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
And look forward to the next window.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks.
So that was really interesting.
Oh, well, now you can clearly see. It was a joke.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it was cool to get another little refresher on acrylic windows because we've took a couple classes, me personally, and you've taken a lot more, obviously. But yeah, it's a really cool topic to hear different perspectives on.
It's a neat product. You got to be careful how you use it.
Yeah, failures are massive.
Because of the thermal expansion that's in the product. And so what's key here is you need to work with a professional that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I've had countless companies approach me from China that we have acrylic and we can sell it to you and do all that stuff. The material is one thing. If you're dealing with just a simple window, okay, there's that. But then you have to know the right sealers and you have to know how to install it and deal with the expansion. And so there's all these things, the load and the engineering. And I'm not about to get into all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the best deal you can ever find. Hire an expert.
Yeah.
You hire an expert. It's great. Now, the big pro here for me is Nick is local.
Which is very rare when it comes to something like this that's so different.
So we're really blessed in the fact that, from a price standpoint, we get a little bit better deal because he doesn't have to put his guys in hotels for 3 nights.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you come in and deliver it, you set it, then you come in and you have to do, the sealing of it and everything like that. It's a multiple day process. And then you got to come back and do some stuff later on. And so because it's local, it's highly advantageous. And for a long time, I was like, somebody in DFW needs to start an acrylic company because there's enough work right here that we can keep somebody busy. And anyway, so I was glad when Nick started it up.
Yeah, I thought what was really interesting. So there's obviously so many multiple parts, so many components that are just makes the equation of problems more possible. And when you have a problem with something like this, it's just very, it's very grand. It's a big effect. Like obviously there's a lot of maintenance and risk when it comes to designing and constructing a pool, like the stuff we do all the time. But I mean, it's your whole wall could just crack and fall out, which it's a different animal. You need to make sure you get an expert and check all those boxes.
You get low quality acrylic and it yellows out on you. You get something that's not thick enough and it's going to, have cracks in it. You don't know that you're not supposed to put a particular material on it and, you cause problems with the maintenance aspect.
Yeah.
So, the very first job we ever did, one of the things is we didn't know that the acrylic was so soft. And so one of the things with it is it scratches very easily.
Yeah.
And what happened is the homeowner wanted to see what it looked like. And she's like, can I take the cover off? And we were like, okay, didn't think anything about it. Well, that job went on for another 2 months after the acrylic was set.
It was just sitting on the job site?
It was installed.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
So it's installed.
Yeah.
It got scratched up. It took somebody a week to buff that whole thing out.
Wow.
So there were 2 guys out there for a week buffing it to get all the stuff off of it. So, now I'm like, you cannot look at this. You cannot see it. You cannot take the cover off. Do not remove anything. Do not touch anything.
It looks the same. How it used to look.
You'll get to see it when you get to see it.
When you fill it up with water, then you get to see it.
But, those are the things that you learn, because we all make mistakes when we're doing stuff. And I think the one thing that Nick brought out that's the most important is don't be too proud to think you know the answers.
Yeah.
Go hire an expert, deal with people that know what they're doing, go ask questions. I mean, he wants to be a resource for people.
Yeah.
And so that's the great thing, because the first company that I worked with, we couldn't get the time of day from them because, they were doing their aquariums in, Dubai, China, and other places. So anyway, it was fun.
It was.
Looking forward to getting these projects that we've got ongoing finished and getting some pictures out there, but it'll be a little while before that. It'll probably be late spring before we photograph the next 2.
Yeah.
And we'll have some more coming after that.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, anything else to share?
The situation he had with the acrylic floor and having the room a different temperature than the pool, I thought that was very interesting. There's little things like that nuggets of information from this podcast that I love to hear. So
yeah. Check out Pool Spa Patio Show. If you're anywhere near DFW in the early November, it's a great source of information on everything. So you'll find everybody that's doing anything cool is going to be there, and it's a great group to learn from and share with. The other thing is, speaking of sharing with, we'll also post a lot of things on Instagram with a lot of pictures that correspond with the things that we're talking about. So hopefully you enjoy all that information. If you're out there and you can give us a review on Apple, that would be great, or any of the other podcasts. We greatly appreciate those.
And the thing about YouTube that I love is the conversation that can happen in the comment section, hearing from the people that are actually listening, because I know there's thoughts and questions they have and that they might go unanswered by the end of the podcast. comment down below, or whether it be Instagram or wherever you're hearing this. We want to hear from you. We really do. So thank you for watching. This doesn't happen without y'all, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.